All right. In the spirit of making this video something useful for these videos, something useful for longer than the duration of our lovely plague, let me introduce myself and explain what I'm doing today. Hey, so for those of you who don't know me, I'm Mike Churba. I run Northwest Armazzare, and while most people who know me for anything probably know me for my Georgian work, our club was originally a Fiore-focused school, and that's still the bulk of what we do as a group. What I'm going to do for you guys today is just try and lay out the very basics of our system, of Armazzare, of Fiore, in a way that people who haven't trained with us or trained anywhere should hopefully be able to pick it up and follow along. The main weapon we're going to deal with today is the longsword. Ideally, you would start everything unarmed, and we'll do that for just a second to talk about stance. So, stance. You should be able to see the lovely stone grid that I'm standing on here, and it makes for a nice, useful teaching aid for this. I'm going to stand with my feet under my shoulders, no wider than that, and I'm going to look down at where my left toe is and put my heel, where my left toe is and put my heel, as I pivot my back foot out 30 to 45 degrees and sink. Once I'm here, I should be in a relatively neutral stance. I should be able to pick up either foot pretty well. To move forward or pass forward in the base movement of the system where one foot passes the other, okay, a mezza volta of the feet, a half turning of the feet, right? From here, I'm going to shift my weight forward, arc my foot in and out. So I end up in the same position with the other foot forward, and I can go ahead and reverse that, okay? You'll notice my feet don't land in the exact same place each time. That's pretty normal. That's the base movement, or the mezza volta of the feet. We also have the accrescimento and descrescimento. Accrescimento is just a little advance, right? Just like fencing footwork. I'm going to lift my front foot, and it's going to land heel foot first and then toe. It's very quick. The descrescimento is basically the same thing, going the other way. I can pass forward and move. There are other foot movements. We'll get into those later. So, we have stance. Next, quick run through. Holding the sword. We hold the sword a wee bit differently than some groups. I'm going to take my gloves off here to show you. We're not going to hammer grip this. We're not going to jam our hands together or try and keep them up. What we're going to do is if you pinch your hand in like this, you should be able to see there's a crease right down the middle here, and we will set that sword in that. You'll notice that my fingers don't reach the cross guard. Okay? This, I will then form a ring, slide down until it hits the pommel, close my hand on the pommel, rest the sword on my shoulder. Yes, I do this with sharp swords. You can too. A sword is not universally sharp. It's sharpest up where you're more likely to hit somebody, and it may not be sharp at all down here by the cross, where it needs to be strong to handle forces and to receive blows. Now we have this. We're going to come here, hold the sword like we just talked, and rest it on our shoulder. This is the very basis of posta di donna, the guard of the woman. Fiore shows us this, wound forward, so that the point is almost sticking forward over his shoulder. If we look at this from the side, so I'm in my stance, I'm wound like this. Now, to make a blow, we're here, sitting like this. The basic actions of a blow are a pull, and if I leave my hand open and just pull, you notice it launches that forward. So pull and punch behind it, pull and punch, and you'll start to feel your rear foot want to come off the ground, right? Pull, punch, step. This is a half blow, okay? A mezza volta of the sword, a half turn. We could also make a full blow, which is still the same thing, and passes through all the same points, continues down at extension, and retracts. When we make these blows, that's the basis. Now, we take the whole thing, right, where we were doing the pull punch step, right, pull punch and step from behind, and I torque the whole thing back. What this does is that the closest target for my opponent to hit is this shoulder. There's no hands, there's no arms. By the time my sword is moving and my body's moving, the sword is past me, coming forward. I am behind the cover of my sword at all times. This is my defense and my offense. I want to keep it between my opponent and myself, but I don't want to just leave it out here because there's no complex hilt. My hands are vulnerable. This contrasts to, say, the Georgian sword and buckler we do, where we will hold the buckler and the sword wedged in behind it in the middle. Great for defense, but we can do that because we have that buckler protecting our fingers. With a longsword, I can't do that. Even here, if I hold here, this is a tricky guard. It's not to hold the line so much as to give an obstacle. So, starting in posta di donna, I cut forward into posta lunga. If I so choose, right, I've cut forward and down into dente di cinghiara, or boar's tooth. When we make this blow, right, I'm here. What happens is that I reach forward, complete. My blow finishes here, and then I retract it to my hip. If I'm completely square to these blocks, you'll see I'm crossing the line. Here I'm pointing down and outside and retracted. When I'm retracted, my blade is off at an angle that kind of tracks my foot, right? This is not a comfortable guard to stay in. If I do it right, I feel tension from this shoulder to this hip. From here, this lets me throw a powerful deflection and a cut, or a thrust, cut to the hands, redouble to the body, as Fiore tells us to do. But these blows are linked, right? So, first exercise, cut and cut, right? So, boom, boom, reset. Simple. I'm going to build on these every day, add bits of basics, and hopefully by the time we're all allowed out of lockdown, we'll have something useful for people to refer to when they're first starting out. Thanks for bearing with me.